recording. And I'm actually at the facility now, so if you hear the phone ringing in the background, just pay no mind to it. All right, the table of contents, I just want to break down the way I have this structured. The beginning portion is going to be my story, starting with music in teenage years and continuing up to this point. Then I'm going to speak on the paradigm that I have when viewing things, whether it be professionally or academically, the way that I see it, and I think it is a beneficial way to view things from here moving forward. After that, I go into tools for success. And these are things that I feel, if implemented and properly implemented, will really help you be effective. There's a difference between active and effective. There's a difference between movement and results. And these tools for success really focus on getting the results. And then a conclusion and any questions that people might have at the end. And I put some suggested reading as well. I'm an avid reader. I don't know if anyone else is, but I have some suggestions at the end. All right. So starting it off with my story with music. I had started taking drum lessons at 8 years old, but I didn't actually start taking it seriously until I was 12. When I say taking it seriously, it became devoted time to practice. That's actually when I met Dr. Ruiz. Back then, he was Joey. Now he's Dr. Ruiz, but I met Joey back then, and he started mentoring me and started training. I started getting in touch with fantastic teachers, and I started listening a lot. I started practicing, and it was at a young age a very maturing process, because typically a lot of my friends were out doing their own stuff, playing video games, doing things like that. And while I did the same, I was still very focused on music. Now, in the next 2 years, I actually had released my first album. It was a solo project entitled Genesis. And that was great fun, a great learning experience, putting everything together. It was very rigorous. It was very trying, but I was very grateful for it. And again, that was with Dr. Ruiz. And we continued. I began gigging professionally, recording for people's albums. We began submitting for awards. I submitted for Downbeat Awards. Did other awards in my church group. Anything that I could, I was doing. Any competition that I could submit for, any gig I had the opportunity to play, I was doing. And at this point, because I was just starting out, I wanted to get any experience I could. So I was taking a free gig. If I remember one gig, I was actually playing triangle with another band. And the gentleman knew my family. He had a band. And he said, well, if he wants to play with us, he can come up and play triangle. And I was homeschooled. So I had a little bit of a stage fright to get over. I had a little bit of of some shyness that I needed to overcome. So playing the triangle on stage in front of people was a great way to get through that. By 18 years old, I had 5 endorsement with 5 different companies, nomination for Latin Grammy Awards, and I had a pretty established presence in the Tampa community. And so when I entered into college, I was definitely already having success inside the music world. In fact, I had actually, a little bit before I started at the university, I had done a gig with a guitar professor a couple months before, and I didn't know he was the guitar professor. And so it was very interesting. And now I still do things with music. As Dr. Ruiz had mentioned, I just launched a business that combines assisted living with music, that provides a booking agency where people can play in assisted living. Last night I actually recorded for somebody's album. A friend of mine has a recording studio. I'm her house drummer. And today I'm with you guys. So I still try to stay connected with music, even though it's not my quote unquote day job. I still enjoy it, and I try to stay in touch with it as much as I can. Now we shift to the sciences. So my bachelor's degree is actually in biomedical science. And an interesting thing here, and it's going to be an important thing to talk about, is going back to I was homeschooled when I was young. Well, being homeschooled, the friends that I did have would tease me about being homeschooled. No matter what I did, I was always the dumb homeschooled kid. Happy-go-lucky, funny, nice guy, but I was the dumb homeschooled kid. And then I started music, and I became the music guy. But there was never that academic sense. Even if I was doing well and I did the standardized tests well, there was still the idea that, yeah, you're doing your own little homeschooled thing. And so I never had the self-confidence in actually being intelligent. And when I was in my teenage years, I was overweight. I was doing a competition, and I tried to get this female's attention at the competition. I ended up winning it, and she still wouldn't pay me any attention. And I said, you know what? I need to lose weight. Losing weight brought me on a journey of discovering about how the body works. From there, I started learning about anatomy and physiology, started learning about medicine, started learning about science, about biology. I got really interested in it. And it brought up this secondary passion that I had. And when I got into college, I thought, you know, I don't need a degree to play the drums. But if I want to do something in medicine, I need a degree for that. I can't just do that based on experience. So I decided to take a swing and take a chemistry class to see if I would actually be able to do well in it. And I ended up missing like 3 questions out of, I added it up, I think there were 500 questions in the whole class, and I missed 3. So I said, well, you know what, I think I can do this science thing. Maybe I'm not the dumb homeschooled kid. So that started the process for me, where I eventually graduated with a degree in biomedical sciences with the intention of becoming a physician assistant. Now, when you go for a PA school, you have to have a certain amount of hours in order to get into the schools. And I couldn't get my foot in the door to the hospitals. I wanted to work in the hospitals and be a CNA in there. And I couldn't get hired. I'd volunteered at a hospital. I thought I was a shoo-in, and they wouldn't hire me. But my friend owned an assisted living facility. And so I worked overnights in the assisted living facility while gigging and going to school. And he would bring me in. Any question I had, he'd answer. I'd ask a question about something with financial, give me an answer. And I started to get interested inside the business of assisted living. And from there, I just started to get interested in business, how you structure it, revenue, clearing up accounts receivable, how to make something profitable, how to scale something. It started to interest me more and more. And so I thought, well, you know what, maybe when I graduate, I need to see if I can get a job being an administrator of a commercial facility. And that's how I got into assisted living to begin with. Now, the biggest advantage that I can see from having the science degree, when right now I'm performing as a businessman, as a manager, and as a musician. Nothing of what I do right now involves chemistry, biology, or mathematics, basic accounting. But what it did for me is it gave me self-confidence. 1, that I understood science, but 2, I could do something that I didn't think I could do before. Something that I thought, no, I'm not the science guy. No, I'm not the chemistry guy. Now I have a degree in it. That was a powerful thing. Something that I took something that was an insecurity And I took away that insecurity and I realized, wow, I could do this. And that opened up the door further to say, what are other things that I thought I couldn't do? Let me try it. Maybe I can. More on that later. The other benefit to the degree was that I added a scientific perspective to my existing artistic perspective. A great example that I can give for this is Dr. Ruiz and I were talking about something. We were talking about colors. And he had said that white is the absence of color. And I said, no, white is all the colors. It's the reflection of all the colors. He's like, no. If you take a paint set and you mix all the colors together, you're going to get black. You're not going to get white. If you mix any pigment in there, you're not going to go back to white. That's the absence of color. And I said, well, hold on. If you look at something white, you're getting all those wavelengths back at you. If you were to stop all the wavelengths or cut one of them out, you'd get a different color. You're seeing all the light. And I think it's a great example between an artistic viewpoint and a scientific viewpoint is that you can look at the same thing from two different sides. And what's really powerful is if you can have both those sides in the same person, to where you can look at something from both angles, understand it from both sides, and be able to flip it as need be.
Yeah, that's very true. You know, all the colors, all the light colors together going through a prism creates white light. All the sound frequencies playing together at the same time is white noise. But with painting, all the colors creates black, because white is the absence of color. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Also, it's very interesting because, you know, I just put there the Grammys and not just the Grammys, like the Oscars, all these academies of entertainment, they know their names are National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, or Television Arts and Sciences, or Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, right? So yeah, it definitely goes hand in hand.
Absolutely. So from the science, I transferred over to the business side of things. Now, again, this was a bit of a leap, because I went from working with test tubes and scratch paper to now taking care of people. I was working as a care aide before. I was the one actively taking care of people. I was helping them shower. I was helping them dress. Now I'm having to manage people. I'm having to perform conflict resolution with staff members. I'm having to hear complaints. More importantly, I'm having to fix what the complaints are about. I'm having to balance expenses, keep track of that, keep track of profitability. And when I came in, it was actually in 2019. And we got hit with 2020 very, very hard. And so that was a whole nother level of things that I had to juggle. So there was a real culture shock, a real shift for me moving from college into administration. I actually started as an administrator in training while I was finishing up my bachelor's degree. And I use this as an example. People always say work harder, not smarter. Or reverse that, work smarter, not harder. And that's true. But always remember, there's someone smarter than you working harder and smarter than you. So when I was finishing the bachelor's, I was going to school full time. I was working as an administrator in training full time. I was gigging on the weekends, both on Saturday night and in Sunday morning. I added it up, and not counting sleep, I had 5 hours a week that was not booked with something, assuming there was no quiz or exam. And I was happy. I was doing it, but I use that as an example to say, look, I'm not special. If I could do it, you can do it. Very important to keep that. And what kept me going is my grandmother was a single mother, and she worked 3 jobs to support her and my mother. And she actually made $1 too much to qualify for public assistance. But she did it on purpose, because she didn't want to use public assistance. She wanted to do it on her own. And so she worked 3 jobs and went to law school with my mother. And so my always thought whenever I got tired is I'd say, man, if Mimi did all that, then I ain't got nothing to complain about. I've got nothing. She did way more than that.
You also got the executive director position, as you mentioned. It was in training. I remember hearing about it. It was through somebody eavesdropping a conversation that you were just having out in the open, and they said, "Oh wow, you have these abilities and you're interested. Why don't you have an interview with the owner?" Right? Can you
Correct.
talk a little bit about that?
Yes, it was actually the other set of family I had. My other grandparents were mentioning it. They were speaking about what I was doing at the previous residential assisted living facility, and the owner's wife knew them, heard the conversation, and said, "Well, I'd like to learn more about that. Can I talk to him? I'd like to set something up, introduce him to my husband, who is the owner of the company." And so I had spoken with her, and I followed up. Here's an important thing. I called her and I left a message. I didn't hear back from her. So what did I do? I called her again and I emailed her. That's an important thing. There's a difference between a closed door and a door that you just have to knock on. Those are 2 different things. Don't open closed doors, but make sure you at least knock and jiggle the handle before you move past a door. So I followed up with her, reached out several times, got in touch with her, and got in touch with the owner. And I was able to meet him and have a conversation with him. I told him everything that I was interested in, that I wanted to own and operate assisted living and go into that sphere. I hadn't done anything in business before, but I was wanting to do it. And he told me the only thing better than an education is an education that pays you. And he said, if you're interested, I'll bring you in as administrator in training. And so I thought about it. I went home, I prayed about it. I talked to a trusted set of advisors that I had for my life, people that I knew had my interest. 1, had my interest at heart, and 2, knew what they were talking about. I spoke with them and they all thought it was a great opportunity. And so I took them up on it. And that's how I got to be with Angel Senior Living. And after I finished the administrator in training program, I became the youngest executive director in the company. And we've been able to get the building to the highest revenue that we've had in its history since 1978. And I say we there because I have a fantastic team here, both from the management to the frontline staff. We really do have a good line of people here, and it's very important, no matter what everyone here ends up doing in life. You're nothing without your people. You're nothing without the people that's right at the door, the person that's answering the phone, the person that's sweeping the floor. You're nothing without your people. When you forget that, you lose your people. That's just a little side note there. Always remember that. Saying the company, last month, I actually launched gignations.com. And I started that having spoken with the owner and other executive directors inside the company. And I saw a need for really good entertainment. A lot of the entertainment that we have in assisted living, they're not great. They're not great. And I was tired of seeing my musician friends that are fantastic musicians, and they're making my sandwich at Subway. And there's nothing wrong with making a sandwich at Subway. There's nothing wrong with that. But I know what these guys can do. And not only do I know what the guys can do, I know the entertainment that my people are getting. And these are the people that should be making the sandwiches, not these guys. These guys need to be playing for my residents. These residents can't get out on their own. They can't go take their wives and go down to the Strass Center. They can't go to Mahaffey. You know, they've had strokes. They've got Parkinson's. That part of their life's over. If I don't bring it to them, they're not going to get to see it. And because of that need, it's why I started it. And I'll speak a little bit later on the company more, but
And
I started.
you'll show us to navigate the website and all that, right?
Yeah, I'll show
Okay.
you how to do that. Absolutely. But my main impetus behind the website, and I think it's important to know it, first and foremost, the goal of the website is to serve. It's to serve the residents, and it's to serve musicians. And I saw a need, and a need is different than a niche. If you can make a profit somewhere, that's one thing, and profit's not bad. But if you can fill a need, then you can scale that. If you see a Candyland set on sale for $3 and you know you can sell it on Amazon for $5, okay, that's an opportunity for profit. But if you can see the opportunity to fill a need and to actually help people, that's where you can actually establish a business. So that's that. And then also on the side, I've been recently learning more and doing things in regards to real estate development of large multifamily properties, as well as subdivisions and renovations of existing buildings. That's something I've been able to, been blessed to be able to make some connections with some people who've done this, who are continuing to do it, and who will continue to do it. And I'm able to learn from them and start getting in on the game with them as well. So that's the story of my business side. Now that you know from the beginning music to where I am today, I want to kind of talk on the mindset that I've had during times. And I'll try to talk about things I've done well and things that I've not done well, because both are very important. One of the first things is pressure. You're gonna experience a lot of pressure. If you're wanting to do a lot of things, if you're putting irons in the fire, you're gonna feel pressure. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm sure you've already experienced this, but when it rains, it pours, and it pours all at once. My community director and I, we had something with some staffing issues. I had to let someone go, and I replaced them with someone else, and it meant we were just okay for staffing. And I looked at her, I said, you know what's going to happen. She goes, oh, I know. Someone's going to get hurt. Someone's going to get sick. Someone's going to quit. I said, yep. I said, you ready? She goes, yeah, I'm ready. Are you ready? I said, yep, I'm ready. And what happened? Someone got sick. 2 people quit, and no one got hurt. So that's good. But when it rains, it pours. You're going to get hit from all sides. And the best way that I can advise to handle pressure is to have a big picture, to have a reason behind you, and to have the attitude of, am I going to die or not? Okay. What I mean by this, your big picture, there's a reason why you do something. Okay, so let's take an example. I'll use an example of myself with playing drums. For myself, the reason why I enjoy drums, to me, there's not a better highlight to music than when you were playing at a gig and you look at the people in the crowd and they're free. They're happy. They're enjoying it. They're not worried about their problems. They're not worried about this. They are in the moment and they're on cloud 9. For me, that makes it worth it. That makes the rehearsals, that makes lugging my heavy drum set around worth it. If I can play that Christmas show and I see that little kid, I always try to make it a point, I'd have extra sticks. And if I saw a little kid and they'd come up and look, oh, daddy, look. And I'd look at him and he'd say, oh yeah, he just started lessons. I'd always give him a drumstick or 2. And their face would just, because at that moment, I mean, you are Michael Jackson. You are Prince. You are everything to this little kid. And to see their faces light up, that made it worth it to me when you could bless the people. So whenever you have the pressures, whenever you got the huge set list that you got to learn in like 12 hours, whenever you've got yet another practice with that band, keep that in mind. Keep your purpose in mind. Second part, but did you die mentality? If crap is happening, there's this I forget what it's called, but they did this study, and there's this mental thing that they found out. They did study on prisoners of war, and they tried to study the difference for the prisoners that made it out of the war, prisoners of war that made it back home, and ones that didn't. And the ones that did had a common theme. They said, this is gonna suck. This is gonna be bad, but I'm gonna get back home. I may not have every limb. I may not have both my eyes, but I'm gonna make it back home. The ones who didn't make it said, I'm gonna be home by Christmas. I'm gonna be home by Christmas. Then when Christmas came, they just gave up. They couldn't do it. Their hope was crushed. But the ones who said, man, this is going to be bad. I don't know if I'm going to be home by next Christmas. I don't know if I'm going to come home with 2 arms or 1, but I'm making it home. They had that. They recognized it was going to be tough, but they knew there was something on the other side. And so when I face pressure, when there's stuff that goes on, when everything's hitting at me, I always try to say, this is going to be bad. This is going to suck. I'm going to hate this for a little bit, but I know there's another side for it. And I know it's not going to kill me. I'm going to make it out on the other side, and I'm going to be stronger. That's how I handle pressure. The next one, how I handled failure. So this is an interesting topic because many people are skittish around failure. Many people don't like to think about it. Many people don't like to talk about it. They take those embarrassing moments, they take those shameful failures, and they just throw them back there. They never look back at it. They bury it back. But I'm telling you, if you can perform an autopsy on your failures, it's going to hurt. It's like pulling off a Band-Aid. You got to look at the wound. It's going to hurt. But the reward of being able to go back and do an autopsy of your failure versus the pain of actually looking at it, it's the reward is so much greater. The reward is so much greater. I will give an example of one of my favorite failures, and it was I was 14. I was 14 years old, and I had just finished the album, and I had a gig, and it was going to be the CD release of my gig. And it was
Jesse, are you sure you want to say this?
Oh, I'm sure, because it's an important thing. It's something that I've referenced. It's something I've referenced for myself, and it's important that they be able to understand it.
Just make sure you tell them what I told you afterwards at 14.
I'll no one can say it as well as you did.
Yeah. All right.
I'll get to that point. So I'm all hyped up. My family's there. You know, it's the pinnacle of this 14-year-old's life. And to this day, I have never had a gig go so poorly. Ever have I had a gig go so poorly. Now, there were numerous reasons for it, but at the end of the day, this gig, terrible. Even to this day, to think about it, my ears get red. I feel a little knot in my stomach. But that was one of the most important things in my life that has ever happened to me. Because I look back and I said, I woke up the next day. I made it. It was okay. I got hurt, but I didn't die. Let me see. Let me pick myself up. And that experience of failing and picking myself up, failure means nothing to me now. It means nothing to me now. It's like the thing, death. Where is your sting? Right? Failure. Come at me, bro. You got me when I was 14. What are you gonna do to me now? Right? And if you can go through and take those moments in your life where you had a hard time, where you feel like you failed, take that into a learning opportunity. Take that as to the thing where you're going to get stronger from it. You're going to become a bigger person, and to where you can look back and say, man, I'm glad that happened. I walked out on the other side of that a completely new person. And then every time you experience what you feel is a failure, replay it and analyze it with vigor. It's one of the best things you can do. Now, in that event, Dr. Ruiz actually came to my house the next day. This is a fun little extra tidbit to it to make it even more knife twisting. Could you elaborate a little bit more on what you told a 14-year-old child?
Yeah, gladly. We had scheduled our lesson the next day, and so I arrive to the house, and Jesse's dad is very disappointed at Jesse in his performance. And keep in mind, he played everything well. What happened is that he was functioning at a standard, for the album, the production, and in previous gigs at such a high standard that when he got so nervous, he was just so focused on the track that the delivery of his expressivity just was not there, and thus did not communicate to the audience. I'm not going to say that the music was terrible. It wasn't. I mean, actually, he played everything well, but he was just so nervous that the audience did not connect. And so it was supposed to be his CD release party, and it was just more of a stressed, focused kid playing drums, as opposed to, the young prodigy artist that everybody came out to hear. And so what ended up happening is, inevitably, all the other musicians ended up shining, as what is, pretty common in a lot of musical contexts, where the drummer is more of a supportive role. You have some bands where the drummer is like, the big hot shot, but this was supposed to be his night. And I'll never forget, there was a person that came and said, "This music is amazing." And it was he was talking about the songs that were not the songs on Jesse's album, because it was an array of the original material from his album as well as covers. And so and I remember advocating for you, knowing that you were feeling very nervous about this whole event. And I said, yeah, I just produced his album. And he said, "Oh, do you have these songs?" Which were not part of it. I said, no, but he did produce this album here. He says, "Oh, I don't care about that." He said, "I want this material here." And his dad was there, and his dad had invested so much money on lessons, in rehearsals, in all this stuff to develop this product for this moment, that it was really bad, because his dad's also a tough shot, like my dad. And his dad said, "I don't know why I invested so much just for this moment, for you to fail like that." And so the next day was the lesson, and I see his dad, and I said, "Hey," and he says, "Get him." And so I already knew what that meant. So granted, I'm doing my PhD in music ed, so this is like a massive rule breaker. But the thing is, I know I also did this kind of tongue in cheek, because I know I knew the enormous talent and potential for him, not just to be a drummer, but like just the promise that he could have in creating opportunities for other people in the future. But he needed a breaking moment, not, because he had a very safe life as a homeschool person. He needed to be broken and build back up. So, he was nervous. He was behind the drum set, and, kind of nervous to even talk about yesterday, but he knows it's coming. And I just said in a very straight face, "What happened yesterday?" But that was after like 5 minutes of just looking at him and not saying a thing. And that created the tension. And then he tried to say his stuff, and I let him say his stuff. And I just said,
"Something went wrong. Please try again."
Even Siri said something went wrong. And he said his stuff. And then I just kind of looked. I had like that Robert De Niro vibe. And I said, "I think you have a future in real estate." And I walked out. And that was it. I didn't say a single thing. I walked out, and we had our lesson the next day. So he had an entire day where his whole lesson was, I think you have a future in real estate, as if to say, I don't think it's in music. But I wanted to see how he would break and how he would build, get back from that. And, I mean, everything changed, all this mindset and how he handled pressure. I mean, he basically, rather than running away from pressure and letting it consume him, he put it in a cup and he chugged it. And that's the pressure. That's what we have to do sometimes, because everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, and y'all are smart. You've been taking this class, you understand the realities and all the great strategies for navigating. But there's always going to be these unexpected things. And what do you want to do? Do you want to spit it out? Do you want to put pressure away and ignore it as if it doesn't exist? Or do you want to embrace it? Right? So Jesse at that moment overcame the pressure, much like the way a sword is fortified by the fire and the hammering. So that's that moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you can see just how, and again, you can put yourself in a situation where you are now and understand how earth shattering that event would have been for you, but then put yourself at 14 in that. And that failure, I still look back on it. It was one of the most important moments of my life, and I wouldn't have traded it for anything. Really wouldn't have. Now, the next and final mindset in regards to difficulty was something I had to deal with, and that was professional jealousy. I was young, I was a kid, I was homeschooled, so I could be unintentionally aloof. I hadn't yet really honed in social skills, and I could seem aloof at times unintentionally. And I had to deal with a lot of professional jealousy. I dealt with it for people my age. I dealt with it with people older than me. I dealt with it with fellow bandmates when I'd be gigging. I was 16, they were 32. I dealt with it when I was in college.
And also to point out, okay, you weren't getting called because you were the young kid on the block who played drums and we need a young face for the entertainment. It was your work ethic. I mean, you were rehearsing for a show 8 hours a day, sometimes just learning the repertoire. You were learning how to read. You were learning how to do all of these different things that, I mean, you were the least person to worry about for the gig for a whole bunch of artists in Tampa Bay. And that's the thing, that's why you were getting called. And a lot of people didn't understand that.
Correct. Dr. Ruiz instilled in me very much so the rehearsal is the first performance. You do not come to rehearsal not knowing your music. You come to the rehearsal, especially as the drummer. We have a very important role in the band. We're leading it. We're leading it. We're setting up sections. We're looking at the people saying, yep, that cue, you missed it. Yep. And so the rehearsals are not the time to start looking at the music. And so I always came to rehearsals prepared. I came to it, haven't already done it, haven't already made my notes. I was ready. And I dealt a lot with that professional jealousy. And my father had told me, there's a lot of eyes on you. You never know who's looking. So you have to be ready. And throughout the difficulties, and there were some people who affected me pretty severely in regards to their professional jealousy. They were at a higher position. They had leverage to harm me, not physically, but they had the leverage to do harm to me, and they used that leverage. And I knew people were watching. I knew I was an example, and I made it a point to, no matter how bad I wanted to react differently, I tried to always take the high road. When you deal with professional jealousy, you are getting into a reputational fight. The only thing you can do is, one, prove, yeah, you do have a reason to be jealous of me, bud. You do. And then two, say, but don't worry, I'm a good guy. I'm taking the high road. I'm not getting into the pig pen with you. I'm not doing that stuff. Taking that moral high road doesn't mean that you're rolling over on your back, but always take the high road, because your reputation is one of the few things in life besides family and love and health that you can't buy. You can't buy family, you can't buy health, you can't buy love, and you can't buy a reputation. Protect it with all costs, all four of those things. So when you deal with professional, if you have any success, you're going to deal with professional jealousy. So always take that high road and just keep doing your thing. Now we go to the more fun thing, which is the mindset around successes. Okay, I'm starting it out, how I handle others' success. So just like on our previous slide, we touched on professional jealousy. We got to make sure that when others succeed, we don't become that person who's jealous of it. Okay, when you're the one who's doing the rehearsals, when you're the one who knows the music and the other guy gets it, maybe he gets it because he knows the director. Maybe he gets it because they're family friends. Maybe he got it because he was better than you. You worked harder than him, but he didn't need to work as hard because he's just better. Don't be jealous. Don't be jealous. I was talking with somebody about wages and income and revenue, and they had mentioned that they felt upset that an attorney friend, a mutual friend that we had, made a certain amount. And he said, "Doesn't that upset you?" I said, "No." I said, "I'm happy for him. I'm glad he makes that. Him making that doesn't mean I make less, doesn't mean I make more. These are two independent events. I'm happy for him. That's his thing. I want him to do good. I want you to do good. I want you to make even more than that." And if you have this mentality, rising tide rises all ships. Okay, they all rise in the rising tide. Do not be focused on other successes. Don't be focused on others' failures. Learn what you can, support people everywhere that you can, but understand that someone else's success is not your failure. Likewise, your success is not someone else's failure. Now, people might not be mature enough to handle that, and you will get professional jealousy, but make sure that you always handle other people's success with a round of an applause, arm around their shoulder saying, "You deserve it. I'm happy for you." Next, how I handle my success. So I've tried to always maintain a level head and humility about myself, my accomplishments. I truly believe no one's special. We all have our own abilities, and I view people's talents and potential as shifting. So let's say somebody's named Joe. Joe's potential in life, he may not be very smart. He may not be very gifted in speaking, but he may be a fantastic cable car operator out in California. Now let's take Albert. Albert has a gifted mind for physics. Albert has a very gifted mind, and he has a gifted mind that's going to understand the universe and time-space continuum, and his last name might be Einstein. Okay. Now, Albert Einstein's role in this world is to fulfill his potential. Now, his potential is discovering all this stuff. Now, Joe over here, Joe's potential is being the best cable car operator that he can be. To me, the two are equal if they've hit their success. And so no matter what I achieve, no matter what I do, I don't look down on someone else's stuff, because I recognize if they've got one thing to do in life and I've got 3 things to do in life, if they hit that one thing and I hit my 3 things, then we're equal. We're equal. If someone else has 7 things and they hit their 7 things, then we're all 3 equal. We all have our potential. You can't judge a fish by its ability to fly. And everyone you meet is your superior in something. Might be checkers, might be speaking pig Latin, but in some area, everyone you meet is your superior. And so never get caught up in your own success. A thing I do every morning when I get to work, I actually take my finger and I put it on the ground. I take a bit of dirt and I rub it in my face. And I do it symbolically to remind myself I'm nothing. I'm trash. I'm dirt. I'm a napkin you throw on the ground. There is nothing inherently special about me. There is nothing I am owed. There is nothing that I should expect. I'm nothing. And my role in life is to serve other people. My role in life is to fulfill my potential. And I encourage you to have a little, you don't have to actually rub dirt in your face. That's a little weird, but I'm kind of weird. You don't have to have something like that, but do something to remind yourself and ground yourself. No matter where you go, you were born naked, you're going to die naked.
You know, Jesse, let me pause right here. Disclaimer, I did not teach him to do that. But that is really powerful in what you're saying, because right now we live in a world where, you know, I mean, it's good, but it can also be dangerous in itself, right? I mean, I think this world, sometimes it's like we go to this extreme, now we go to this extreme. And so there's like a lot of self, you know, empowerment, and it's like, I can, I will, I do, I, because there's been for a long time such a high degree of low self-efficacy, you see. And so now there's all of this, which has kind of become a movement. But then now, by continuously putting an emphasis on I, you run the risk of vanity, just to consume, you know, everything, and then also entitlement, you know. And then what you're essentially saying is that, look, it's not that you don't think you know, you're worth anything. Obviously, you have a high degree of you know, perceived value of yourself, but it's a constant reminder that you do, knowing the responsibility, not just the ranking, but the responsibility and the privilege that you're in and what you have worked towards, to that you need to find ways to humble yourself, because you do have the tendency, as all of us do, to you know, once we start experiencing success, we have to find the ways to keep us grounded, because if not, you know, our heads can't fit in the room. All it takes is just one little needle to pop, you know what I mean? And so it's just it's really great that you're talking about this, because again, the big focus on today's topic that you're giving is mindset for the struggles, for the failures, but also for the successes, and how do we do that? And so, yeah, carry on. It's really cool.
The final part on the success is how to handle the spotlight. This is a difficult one, because you're not going to be perfect 24/7. So we know we can't buy reputation. So how do we protect our reputation when we're in the spotlight? You're in the spotlight all the time. You got the spotlight when it rains, when it's pouring, as well as when everything's going great and you're on top of the mountain. And for myself, the dirt thing helps me with this, because I understand what my role is. My role is to serve people, to serve my residents, to serve my families, to serve my staff, to serve the people that are using my website, to serve the people in the crowd of any gig that I'm performing, to serve the artists who I'm recording for. Keep that focus. You keep doing what you need to do. The other thing on it is, when you have moments that you think you could have reputational damage, you need to take a minute. When you're doing a gig and someone has, let's say you're leading the gig, you are the band director, and you're getting ready and you've got your sub, and you open it up and you recognize this person has not even opened the book. They don't even know what key anything's in. They asked you where the transpose button was on the keyboard. Okay, you're livid. Take 5 minutes. Take 5 minutes, when you're in the spotlight, when you're in a position where others are looking at you, make sure you control your tongue. Make sure you control your actions. You have to make sure that you can present something that your reputation jive with. Otherwise, you can't get back that reputational damage. You have to make sure, even in those bad times, you can at least distance yourself from eyes, relax, then come back. That's a huge thing. It's the huge things to remember. Next time you get really upset about something, remember, you're in the spotlight. Don't damage your reputation. All right, next, mindset for results. Now, I have tried exceptionally hard to make this slide without the words grind or hustle. I have some opinions about the words grind and hustle. I love hard work. I love determination. But the hustle movement, I sometimes disagree with. Okay. So whenever I do something, I think, and whenever you do something, I think there's some mindsets that you need to have. The first is fulfillment. You have to have a way to be fulfilled by what you're doing. Now, if it's just doing a school project in English, yeah, you don't have to find fulfillment in that. But if you're working on a project, if you're working on something, you have to have that reason to where when you wake up in the morning, you say, okay, this is what I'm doing. Now, note, I didn't put enjoyment. Enjoyment is different from fulfillment. When I was a teenager and I played Grand Theft Auto with my cousin, that was enjoyment, but there was no fulfillment felt to it. When I finished a workout, back when I used to work out, and I hit a new PR, or when I was losing weight and I went down a pound. Well, I can tell you, I did not enjoy the process of eating chicken breast and rice. I did not enjoy the process of jogging a mile, but I was fulfilled by the result. So you have to find something that you have fulfillment in. Happiness doesn't matter. Fulfillment is what carries you through the difficult time, and it's what keeps you going when things are good and you don't have to do it anymore. Next, obsession. If you're fulfilled by something, you enjoy it. Now you need to be able to obsess over it. Now, I don't mean obsession in the terms where that's literally all you're doing. You can't even think about anything else. But you need to be able to think about that, even when you're not thinking about it. An example would be, I remember distinctly, there was this ride at Busch Gardens. I used to go to Busch Gardens a lot. And I'm just at Busch Gardens. I'm chilling, I'm having fun. I look at the little train tracks, right? And I'd see the way they look, and it would be like a visual representation of percussive notes to me. I think, oh man, that's kind of cool. What would that sound like? I wasn't actively trying to do that, but I was obsessed on music. I was obsessed on the drums. And so everything I was looking at fit into that framework. It was in my mind constantly. And when you're doing something, you need to be able to have an obsession for it. I hate to tell you, but 9 to 5 is not going to get exceptional results. You can work more than 9 to 5 and also not get exceptional results. You can just sit at a desk all day. It doesn't matter. You can sit behind a drum set, hit behind a keyboard, and just diddle around all day. It's not going to do anything. With that obsessive nature, to where even when you're not behind the keyboard, even when you're not behind the mixing board, you're looking at things and you're thinking about what you're doing. You're applying different viewpoints. That's how you really start to understand something. Next, focused work ethic, right? I said you can sit behind a desk all day and not do anything. I used to see other people sit behind a drum set all day and they got nothing done. I can tell you, if your practice sounds good, you're doing something wrong. Okay? If you're practicing, you're saying, man, this is so good, you're doing something wrong. You don't practice what you're already good at, okay? You look at, what do I need to work on? What are these things that I need to do? You work on that. You focus your work ethic. I don't care, and no, I'm sorry, but no one cares how much you're doing. People care about what you're getting done. So if one person took 2 hours to do something, let's say they took 2 hours to record a song, and you took all day because you're on the grind, and you took 10 hours to record a song, all you did was waste 8 hours that you could have done with something else. So it's not about just working. It's not about just doing. You've got to translate action into results. That should always be your end result. Before you start something, you need to know what's the result. And then the only job is to see the shortest distance between where you're at and the result.
Let me stop you right there. That's I'm writing an article right now with a PhD student in music ed named Edward White, and the article is about distinguishing the difference between a standard music producer versus an entrepreneurial music producer. And it comes down to exactly what you're talking about. The entrepreneur always thinks about the outcomes and then works backwards, because it's always thinking about the solution, what the result is, what's the impact value that it's going to be, and then makes the product to try to reach that level. Just everybody that I come across who is doing something entrepreneurially in the arts that is successful is always thinking about that. Now, they could be talking about different facets, like, okay, how much money do we want to generate with this particular project? What kind of people, audience do we want to maintain? What kind of recruitment do we want to be able to do? Like, it's always thinking about the outcomes from the launching and marketing of that product. So yeah, I like what you're talking about, because you're thinking about the end result, not just thinking about yourself. There's a time for that to develop self, and one could argue that you need to invest more in yourself than in your work, your job. So you can always have one competitive edge among your, like, let's say your partners or your employers. When it comes time to get nitty and gritty and do the work, you got to be able to deliver results.
Absolutely. That comes to the next one is severity. You need to do what you're doing with an intensity. It needs to be severe. It needs to be severe. You've got to get it done, and you've got to treat it as though, I don't want to say your life depends on it, because that's hyperbolic, but you have to be serious about what you're doing. It's when you're formulating your results, why bother to say, oh, I want to become the 6th best pianist in Gainesville? Who cares? You got to be severe. You got to say, I am going to be the best pianist in Florida first, and then I'm going to be the best pianist on the East Coast, and then I'm going to be the best pianist in America. And I'm very serious about that. And here's my plan. Here's how I intend to do it. And you're not smiling. You're serious. This is action. Okay. Treat it like Mike Tyson in a ring. Was he? Yeah. No, he was severe. He was ready. He's going at it. If you have competition, if you have a goal to get at it, you don't need to do it with a smile and think. You got to get crazy eyes. You got to do it with crazy eyes. You need that intensity. That's how you got to do it. Stay severe with it.
No,
now,
hey, listen, you're speaking truth, because I don't know. I mean, there's at the end of the day, people will develop their preferences, and one of the things that we've talked about in this class a lot is the 5 stages of consumer experience. So first, it's tolerance. Can they even tolerate you? A few seconds later, they immediately enter into a state of judgment. then preference, then they develop a taste, meaning like, okay, now you pass, but when am I in the mood to partake of your product? When do you want to listen to this album, or how often you want to listen? Then there's desire, and so you're talking a lot with fulfillment and obsession and focused work ethic and severity. There's such a desire that is fueling all of this. And the idea is for you to find those people that will connect with you with the same level of desire to want to support you, because nobody's going to support you if they can't believe, at the very least, that you even believe in what you're doing. Because we all understand that there's not necessarily such thing as a best, but in putting yourself in a mindset of I want to be the best, whatever that means, is for you to now become more like a hyena or like a lion, in which you're gonna be aggressive about fortifying and refining the product and services, but just your overall business. Because I'll tell you right now, I know a handful of people that they told me, 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, that they wanted, to experience this particular dream. And then they're texting me about, hey, how's it going? And it's like, I don't even have time to respond because I'm too busy working, to sustain and to continue building that dream. And so it's like the level of obsession for the work ethic, for that dream, sometimes does not match with the people that you have worked with in previous cases, which that's just another point that I think, to piggyback off of, that I might even bring, is that, since we're talking about like, just the hard stuff today, right? Mindset. I'm sure some of you have experienced this, but you will continue to experience this if you're doing the right thing, in which, the people that you're doing business right now, collaborating, one day you're going to distance yourself. The goal is to distance yourself, but maintain some type of collegiality or respect or friendship. I'm not saying you're going to distance yourself and hate each other, but it's very normal for collaborations right now to exist, and then eventually in life to deviate. For example, Jesse and I, we've worked on many albums together. We even have albums as Jose Valentino and Jesse Pitts, and they won awards. But I have not recorded Jesse in, like, I would say maybe 5 years, 6 years. And it was, and I used to call Jesse, come on, man, record drums, man. Let's not lose this, the good old days. And he's like, nah, man, I can't. And now there's like a full circle coming, because it's like, I had no idea. I thought he abandoned music. I didn't. I never got mad, because it was like, he took himself seriously. And I understood that the career in music played a great role, life lessons for him to do the executive gig at the ALF. And now I'm finding out, wait a minute, he's not letting go of music. Music is coming back, but serving a greater purpose. And so now there's opportunity. This is like really our first collaboration in maybe half a decade, So yeah, I like the words that I remember you sharing the slides before anybody saw them, and I was just looking, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's going to be saying some tough stuff right now, because he's talking about severity, I'm just thinking, some of you, well, I know all of you have dreams. Some of you have been working, sending me your stuff more often, or just kind of communicating with me on a regular basis, just talking about, hey, what about this? What about that? But the thing is, it's like, how desperate are you to fulfill that dream, that it comes to the point of severe, not in a where you're falling into a state of depression, but it's almost like a wordplay, like the severity of the situation. You are causing it to be severe. It's more street talk than anything, but I just really like the fact that you're using these words.
Yeah. And finally, for the mindset of results, criticisms. I talked about the benefit to being able to go back and perform an autopsy on your failure, right? You need to be able to have critics. You need people in your life that have your best interest at heart, and have your best interest at heart so much so that they'll tell you the hard things that you don't want to hear. I'll give an example. I was actually a producer on someone's album, and I thought the album should be changed a little bit before release. And I didn't think certain things should be on it. I felt very strongly about it. And the person was like, no, this is good. This is good. And I said, all right. I said, well, if you're going to bring this out, if you're going to produce this, please don't put my name on it. And I think that comes from a part where it's having someone's best interest in heart and being able to hear that. The person didn't take my advice, but they did not put my name on it, which was good. But it's also important to hear criticisms from people that aren't in your inner circle and be able to judge it and say, wait, is this legitimate? I know this person doesn't know me, or maybe this person doesn't like me, but let me see, is this a legitimate criticism? Be able to go back, evaluate statements. If you can't take criticism, it's going to be very hard to grow. So that's the last part of the mindset for results, is you have to be able to take criticism, go back, critically evaluate yourself, and evaluate criticism from others, even if they're not someone who you know is on your side. Make sure it's just, no, this person's just saying crap. Make sure there's nothing you can gain there.
I'll add that over the summer, I worked on a project. I worked on several projects, but one of them, I saw a video of this artist perform, and I said, yeah, this is great. That person inquired if I can help produce this album. And I said, man, what a talent, and but it came down to the recording session, and the money was really good. And I was like, oh, this is going to be good. This is going to cover me for like the next 2 months. All right, cool. But then I saw that I was like, I was still trying to fathom, and it was only this summer, what kind of wizardry happened that in the video, I'm hearing a completely different thing from what is actual, I don't know if I have enough, memory on my computer to save, auto tune or flex tuning on this particular artist's performance. And I was working with somebody else, actually. Well, I don't want to give anything away, so I was working with somebody else, and we were while we were editing this stuff, we were saying, we need pseudonyms quick. What's your middle name? And just thinking about what pseudonyms we could potentially take on. And thankfully we figured it out. Not the pseudonyms, we figured out how to fix the situation, but it was such an operation, but it, to the point where I was contemplating, and the thing is, I was willing. It got to the point where I was talking to my wife. I said, I'm willing to give this money back and just kind of remove myself from the situation. But, we kind of looked at the consequences, not just myself, but also just, professionally in the industry and relationally, and how severe would it be if my name was actually on it or not, right? And my other colleague's name on it or not. But the other component of it was the reason why we were struggling and even considering pseudonyms was because we know this person would not have been able to take criticism. And we did not get that impression during our initial conversation. And so that was my fault, because maybe I should have vetted the situation a little bit better, as opposed to taking on the opportunity based on one video that sounded amazing, and the money that sounded amazing, and the time frame to get this accomplished. Because I'm still now 5 months in, still working and finalizing this project, because there's been so much editing back and forth, so yeah, criticism is key.
So now I move on to the paradigm. So I kind of that was the introduction around me, a bit about my story and kind of my thought processes up to this point in my life. And so if the topic of this is the reinvention myth and the paradigm and mindset tools to have success in the multifaceted areas. So this is the main thought process that I have. Everything's connected. So I mentioned about having an artistic viewpoint and a scientific viewpoint in the colors, and how white can either be all the colors or white can be the absence of colors, right? But I understand we're all still talking about the same thing. We just, one's looking at this side, one's looking at this side. If there's one take home I could give you through this entire lecture, understand that any knowledge you get is part of a whole. Don't look at something and say, I can't use that. I don't need to know anything about philosophy. I'm a musician. Don't do that. Don't limit yourself. Understand that, hey, if I read some philosophy books, it'll help me. Don't know how, but somehow, some way, it'll help you. So everything is connected. One subject is a piece of the whole. Do not compartmentalize it out and say, oh, this is left brain, this is right brain. No, it's all one brain, one world, one universal set of laws, one mathematics that works. Okay, all of it's connected. 2, stay questioning. Learn as much as you can and never stop learning. Keep a childlike curiosity. Children are curious about everything. I don't know if anyone here has kids, but if you see kids, everything they see is new to them. They look at something, oh my goodness. The first time they see a water fountain, oh my goodness. The first time they see a book, oh my goodness. Everything they see is new to them. Keep that. Don't become jaded. Don't become, been there, done that. No, there's always something you can learn. Just this morning, I was on my way to work, and I saw this thing for mathematics podcast. And so I started listening to it. I have no intention of doing anything in mathematics, but I thought it sounded interesting. So I said, all right, let's click it on. Let's play it. Stay open to learning as much as you can. Finally, don't be afraid to do something different. Don't define yourself under strict definitions. Okay, one of the things that I really was impressed with is when I had people do introductions, you stated your name and you stated some stuff you were doing. No one came to me and said, yep, my name's Jesse, I'm a drummer. Said, oh, my name's Jesse, I play drums, I record, I've composed, I do. That's the way you got to think. You are not one thing. You guys aren't even musicians. That's just part of what you are. For the educators, you're not even educators. That's just part of what you are. Don't limit yourself down to your current profession or your current field of expertise. When you define yourself, you know, let's say Axel Castro. When you define yourself, who are you? I'm Axel Castro. Here's what I'm doing now. There is no set thing to say, oh, I'm a this, I'm a that. No. I am me. Here's what I'm doing right now. You never change, you grow. Okay? So this is why I titled this The Reinvention Myth. Because the truth is, you don't actually reinvent yourself. No one actually reinvents themselves. Okay, when Michael Jackson went from one album to the other album, he really just changed outfits. You know, I know, but Bad really wasn't a reinvention. He just put on some leather, right? You grow in other directions. So for me, when I made the switch over to business, when I stopped doing some of the stuff in music, I didn't reinvent myself. I didn't say, oh, I am the new Jesse. No, I was still the musician, but now I was adding something else. I was Jesse who played drums, who recorded, who did producing, but now I added this other thing. Finally on here, you stay naive to the impossible. The reason why I've gone from music to a degree in science to business is not because I'm brave. It's not because I'm courageous. It's because I'm too dense to understand how unlikely that those choices were to lead to success. If I looked back and said, oh my gosh, you know, the chances of success for that, I wouldn't have done it. I was just naive to the impossibility of it. Sure, yeah, we can do that. I'm sure we can. We'll find a way. Don't look at the impossible. Now be realistic. Be realistic, of course, but stay naive to the impossible. Those three topics right there make up this whole paradigm. The traditional paradigm says you go to school, you get a degree in education, you're a teacher. That's what you do. You get off work, you drink beer. On the weekends, you go to the baseball game. Rinse and repeat until you're dead, living in my assisted living facility, right? Then I take care of you. That's not it. That's not it. Continue learning. Everything's together. You can switch. You can do things. You can add on something. You can teach. And then after work, you do this. And on the weekends, you do this. And then this little thing becomes so important to you, and you've made it to where it's profitable. So now you switch. And now you do this. And you build this. And you don't look at the impossible. You stay realistic. You continue learning and you grow. So now that we have the paradigm by which we're going to view everything, I'm now going to go over with you what I think are really important tools for success. Okay, and these come down to how to learn, planning and goal setting, guiding principles, investing in the big picture. Okay, now big disclaimer here. The knowledge of these tools is not enough. You must apply them. Okay, what I'm presenting here are hammers, nails, screws, wrenches, bolts. Okay, without your intentional effort, without the hand behind it, without the hand steadying the nail and the hammer driving it, without the person wielding it, it's of no use. So if you have no intention of applying any of this, the rest of this won't help you. But if you actually intend on applying this, I guarantee you, you will notice, if you apply this today, you will notice a difference in 1 week. Definitely within 1 week. If you apply these principles to what you're doing right now, you will look back next Wednesday and say, wow, I got some stuff done. First one, how to learn. So if the first thing that I said, if you hear nothing more of, just listen to this, everything's connected. Well, then the other thing that I could say, if you hear nothing but this, would be how to learn. Okay, this works for any topic. This works for math. This works for science. This works for music. This works for sports. This works for anything. First step, learn from the best. There's a book called The Richest Man in Babylon, and there's a story in it. And basically the story is this guy wants to learn about gems, but he goes to a bricklayer and the whole thing fails. And he doesn't understand why. And the moral of the story is, if you want to learn about gems, if you want to start investing in gemstones, don't do it with the bricklayer. If you want to learn about organic chemistry, don't do it from the English major. Find the organic chemist. Okay, if you want to learn about recording and the recording arts, go to somebody who's got 5 Grammys on the wall. Go to somebody who's been there, who's done it, who's got the platinum albums to prove it. Now, obviously, depending on your circles, you probably won't have access to the best. People rarely do have access to the best unless they're the children of you know, Jeff Bezos or one of Elon Musk's kids. They probably are not immediately going to have access to the best, but you can have the access to the best in your area at your disposal.
Or DJ Khaled.
Or DJ Khaled. Be the best. Exactly. So find someone who's good. If you're wanting to learn something, if you're wanting to learn drums, and the best person you can find is someone who's gigging a lot, or someone who just gigs once a week, go with the guy who's gigging a lot. Go with the person who knows what they're doing.
Well, you wanted to learn how to make money. So you found a guy who at that time, I don't know what his net worth is now, but at that time was 40.
Well, that was, yes, that was originally the individual that I had started working with one of my things on. He was definitely well-to-do, and at this point, I'm definitely blessed to have made some connections around people who have very sizable net worths. And that's important, not to look and say, oh my gosh, but to look and say, oh, well, they know what they're doing.
Mhm.
And so that's what I found. And these people will be put into your life, and you just take advantage when you find them. So once you find those people, you need to immerse yourself in the topic. I talked about obsession. That's what you have to do. You obsess yourself in this. Now, I learned something about immersing from music, and I learned something about immersing from science. Music taught me to learn the vocabulary, culture, and social aspects of things. So I'll give an example with Dr. Ruiz. When Dr. Ruiz was teaching me Latin music, most people would say, ah, this is the clave, this is a conga, this is a tumbao, this is what it plays. And you just learn it, you read off a sheet, and you pat yourself on your back and you say, hey, I did a good job today. That's not really the way that you're going to get there. What you're going to do is that the first part, you're going to learn the stuff. Hey, here's the clave, here's the son, here's the rumba, here's the tumbao, this is how it's played, this is salsa, this is merengue. Then once you finish that, you're going to spend all this time, an equal if not greater amount of time, listening to that music. You're not done. Then you're going to make some Hispanic friends, some Puerto Rican friends, some Cuban friends, some Ecuadorian friends, some Venezuelan friends. You're going to meet some Brazilian friends, maybe get some European friends from Spain. You're going to hang out with them. You're going to meet their family. You're going to do all that. And then you're going to go eat your food. You're going to learn the dishes. You're going to learn how to make it. You're going to learn how to make mofongo, okay? You're going to be getting them plantains. You're going to be chopping up the garlic.
Which reminds me, you became the drummer for Bruno Miranda, who is a very well-respected Latin jazz, but specifically Brazilian jazz pianist. But before you even had that opportunity, I was like, I need to make this connection. So let me see how to do it. It turned out that he had a birthday party. Okay, he's based out of Tampa, and he invited me, and I said, Jesse, come to the birthday party. He says, I don't go to birthday parties for people I don't know. I don't want to be awkward. And I said, no, don't worry. I told him it's going to be great. But what happened, Jesse?
So I show up, we're at the door. I'm with Dr. Ruiz. He knocks on the door, and then he turns around to me. He goes, by the way, he doesn't know you're coming, and probably no one here speaks English. And then he turns back around, and they open the door, and there was one other person who only spoke English. One, Doug. Doug was the only other guy who was not Brazilian and who was not speaking Portuguese at that party. But it was a great time.
But he could, though. He could.
Yeah, he could.
He even sang, in another language. I think he sang Besame Mucho in Spanish.
So I was that was the only one there, ears red with embarrassment. But
you're a wallflower, and he introduces you. He says hi to you, and he's like, "So who are you?" But you ate the food, and that was the beginning of a journey.
I did.
And then you ended up being the producer for his album that ended up getting a nomination.
Absolutely.
And you gigged with him all around. So
yeah. And by learning to do this stuff, I know it seems kind of hippie and free and weird about saying if you want to learn something, you've got to eat the food from that culture. But it actually translates. If we go back to the paradigm and say everything's connected, okay? If you want to learn how to play neo soul, okay, you're not just going to listen to D'Angelo, Erykah Badu. You're not just going to do that. You also need to eat the soul food. You need to eat the stuff. You need to understand they cook it low, they cook it slow, they cook it for a long time. It's laid back. Okay? When you're doing salsa, when you're playing salsa, why is it called salsa? Well, how do you actually make salsa? It's everything. It's together. It's the fusion. In America, when we name something fusion, because it's a mix of stuff. For the Afro-Cuban stuff, salsa, everything's mixed in. It's spicy. You got some weird hits. You got some uncomfortable rhythms for for kind of a Western European ear. It sounds different. And the food and the culture relates that. And so if you can view things from an upper level as everything is connected, by getting involved in the culture, understanding the cuisine, learning the language, meeting the people, it'll help you have a better understanding of the subject that you're doing. In the same way, if you want to learn about business stuff, get into the culture of it. Watch videos of people, watch people speak, watch all these things, even if it's unrelated, someone's thought process, even if it's just GQ top 10 items of Mark Cuban, right? Get to know it, see, immerse yourself in that. Now, the science side taught me how to learn a topic from all sides and question things. So I very much enjoyed chemistry. And in organic chemistry, we build models because it's very important, the shape of chemicals and molecules. You have to understand that. And so we build models to understand it so we can see it from all sides. In the same way, when you learn something, approach it from different sides. If we're learning something and we know a kick pattern or a montuno or a tumbao, you got to ask, well, could I play something different? Could I do it this way? What if I inverted that? Treat the topic like it's a physical thing and try to view it from all sides. You know, say, oh man, payroll taxes. What if I flip it from a 1099 and then I don't have to do it? I just pay them as 1099 independent contractors, right? Understand a topic from all different angles. Treat it like a physical molecule where you can move it around. It takes a little bit of practice to do, but if you can do that, you'll get a lot of knowledge out of it. This goes to the next one. Actively apply knowledge and ask questions. Try to think of questions. When you're with the person you're learning from and they're teaching you something, ask about it. If you're learning about payroll taxes, how can I avoid payroll taxes? What's the risk? How do people do it 1099? What does that mean for the employee? Ask questions. Next, this is really important, but go for the extracurricular. So you're all in college classes right now. So you and everyone else that you're with are on a bus going to the same destination at the same time, at the same speed. Your fellow students are not your competition. I remember talking with Dr. Ruiz. I was taking a class and I was so excited because I'd gotten a perfect score on something. I was the highest scoring student in the class. And I told him, that's awesome. And he replied to me, he said, why are you happy about that? I said, well, because it was math and I didn't think I was good at math. I said, well, because this is calculus. This is a hard subject. This isn't something that I'm good at. He said, I just can't understand why you're proud about beating students. They're amateurs, dude. They don't know what they're doing. He said, the professor's the one that you got to go after. You got to beat the professor. And that changed my thinking so much, because if we're training for things, if we're going to college with the intention of doing something outside of college, you need to practice where you play. My competition is already out there. If I'm a salesman, if I'm learning sales and marketing, my competition is not my colleagues. My competition is the 50-year-old that's been doing this for 30 years, that's applying for the same job that I want. That's my competition. So go for that extracurricular. It's not enough to just go through school. It is not enough. School should be the thing that you spend the amount of time that you're required to, and then you put these extracurriculars on top of it, because the extracurriculars is where you apply what you're learning in school. And that application of knowledge is what's going to give you experience and wisdom, and that's what's going to give you success.
Yeah, I'll pause right there. Man, you're dropping a lot of powerful gems. And, you know, I think for me as a professor at the previous institution where I was, you know, part of the reason why I left is, quite frankly, it was too Leave It to Beaver for me. You know, it just felt like I didn't have enough challenge. or that I had the students that kept me on the edge of my seat to say, man, I gotta be one step ahead. So thankfully I found a place here at UF where it's just like, man, the talent level, but also the hunger, like what you're talking about. I see it more often, you know, a larger percentage of students here where I feel like personally every single day that I step foot on campus, like, oh gosh, am I equipped? You know, do I have the answers for when somebody says, hey, how do we do this? You know, but it, you know, that's so just to kind of affirm what you're saying, you know, it takes a while to sometimes to find the place in which you can constantly be in a state where you are in a position to learn and you know, which is awesome, because it's like that's the reason for me why I wanted to remain in higher ed. You know, it's like I don't have to, you know, I have the funds to support myself outside, but it's giving me that fulfillment, you know, not the happiness, because I got to do a lot of things that I don't want to do, you know, but I'm being fulfilled, right? And so yeah, going that extracurricular, I really like how you said it, and there's something that Matthew McConaughey said, all right, when he won the Oscar for Best Male Actor, you know, some years back, he said his hero was himself 10 years down the road, you know, is chasing that version of himself that doesn't exist. And he said he'll never get there. But even 10 years from now, when he's there, his hero is going to be the next 10 years, you know? So it's just really interesting because, I mean, I think you and I, we had a conversation, I don't know if it was yesterday or a couple of days ago, but we were talking and you had mentioned, you said that, you know, you were talking about your older self and how you're working towards, you know, you want your older self to be a different version of what you are right now, you know? But you can't achieve that unless you're not even putting yourself as your own competition in a healthy way. You know, how can I get better? So, yeah.
Absolutely. And you know, this next one is about appreciating and respecting failure. Now, I've already spoken to you at length about failure, and I don't put it again here to be redundant. I put it on here again to make sure that you really understand how important it is to appreciate and respect failure. Understand there's a difference between failure and giving up. Most of you have never failed. You've given up. Failure is when you are checkmated. You go left, you're done. You go right, you're done. You go up, down, sideways, you're done. You have no moves left. You have failed. There's nothing you can do. Game over. That's failure. Most of the time, what we do is experience something difficult, and it could be exceptionally difficult. We can say, yeah, it failed. Didn't fail. You gave up. Now, it's okay to give up. It's okay to get an exit strategy if you're doing it strategically. I'll give an example. For a period of time, I had a top 40 band that I was doing just to make some extra money. And I was in school, I was doing other things, and I saw the amount of time that I needed to put into it. And I looked at what I could get out of it. I looked at what it would take. And I decided I'm not going to continue this. And so I looked back on it and I recognized I didn't fail. I gave up. I gave up intentionally. I didn't have a big picture behind it. It didn't fulfill a big role. It just was for some extra income. And so understand failure is very different than giving up. But be able to look back and look at failures in areas where you gave up and see where you could have done better or why you chose to do it, and be confident in decisions. If you do choose to stop something, let's say you choose switch your major, stop the major and do another one. Just make sure that you know exactly why you gave up and be comfortable with that. But don't give up because it's too hard or because you think that you actually failed, because I can guarantee you didn't actually fail. Next part of tools for success, planning and goal setting. This is very, very, very important. Okay. Goal is what you want. The plan is how you get it. Pretty simple, but a lot of people don't do this. Okay. Start abstract. So what's a goal somebody has? Just tell me a goal.
What's the goal, Gabby?
To songwrite and
Okay.
make my own music.
Songwrite. Write your own
Okay,
music.
but let's expand a little bit more because you just
No,
mentioned
this is good. This is good.
Okay.
Songwrite and write your own music. Okay. Now, Gabby, I appreciate you speaking up. You had the boldness to speak up, and everyone should look up to you for that, and you should look down on them for that, for not having spoken up sooner. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. You were called out, so you get no credit.
Axel is next because he's been shying away.
No. So a good thing, right? You say, I want songwrite and I want to write my own music. Okay. That is a blurry vision of your goal, but it is something. So we started abstract. Now we want to create more and more concrete goals. So this, I want to songwrite. What's a more concrete version of that?
Creating lyrics.
More concrete. Come on, this is your goal. Don't tell me you can't think of it. Give me something concrete.
Study composition and theory.
Wrong direction. I'm gonna help you here, right? I want to songwrite an album and I want to release it in a year.
Makes sense.
Okay. Now, what did I do there? I started abstract and I worked it down to a concrete. But what did I do after it was concrete? I set a time frame to it. Your goal needs to have a time frame. Otherwise, it just, hey, what time's the party? I don't know.
Could I just add to that?
Yeah.
It needs to have multi-dimensional direction. And what we're talking about is direction time-wise. For example, you thought about the future. I mean, we could even go to say, where do you want to release it? So now we're talking about space. In what ways do you want to release it? Digitally, physically? So now we're talking about matter. You see what I'm saying? So I think that's a great way to help make things more concrete. And it makes sense, right? I mean, concrete is in this physical world, And so basically concrete is a word to describe just like the actualization of things. So you have to put things from an idea, which is ideation. It's conception. It's not even like a thing until you manifest it. And so the only way you manifest it is by bringing it into the realm of time, space, matter, and energy, right? We totally went physics here, but you get what I'm saying, is that's a great way to concrete your ideas. Because what you said initially, Gabby, your second response was write lyrics. Well, we didn't go a forward direction. You just basically gave me another attribute of describing the exact same thing. So we were still here, songwrite, write lyrics, theory, composition, like all of this is still here. You're telling me different things about songwriting, but what do you want to do, right? So this is why it's important to always, a goal has a destination, right? So maybe the goal you were trying to say is how to songwrite better, or how to learn these aspects better. So that's a goal, learning, you see? But yeah, I think I've said enough.
So we want to songwrite. We want to release an album 1 year. Now we work backwards. Okay. You work backwards all the way to right after this ends. Create a step right after this lecture ends. Okay. A draft plan. Right after the lecture ends, you do it. So right after this lecture ends, you could write a song and you could say, I'm a cat who likes bats and I see a gnat and I don't think songwriting's my knack, right? I don't care what you write.
I'm so glad you're not a rapper.
Hey, I might be. No limitations, childlike curiosity. It's all connected, okay?
Okay,
Individuality,
all right.
spontaneity, creativity.
All right. You got me.
So you take that and work the goal, get your goal, make it concrete, and work a plan all the way down to today. Now, When you get your plan, write it down. I'm going to show you guys this. This is my planner, okay? In my planner, I have everything planned out, but I have my big goals at the beginning, and I have them written down. I have these things written down, and it says what I want. Why do I want it? Okay, so that puts what's my goal? What's the reason behind my goal? How will I achieve it? So what's my goal? Why do I want it? And how will I get there? You will not get anywhere that you want to go if you don't have a plan on how to get there. You won't. I can tell you all, hey guys, come down to my house. I'll grill some steaks for everybody. But if I don't give you the address and you don't plug it into the GPS, you're not getting there. You can drive all over Florida. You're not going to find it. I have never seen an organized, disciplined, consistent, and honest person fail. Let me break that down. Organized. They know what they're doing. They do not waste time waking up in the morning going, oh, what should I do today? No, they prepped it the night before. Here's what I'm doing. They know, what's my goal today? No, they already know it. They're organized. They're disciplined. They know what they have to do and they do it, whether they feel like it or not, whether they enjoy it or not, because it's about fulfillment. They're consistent. Okay, you can be disciplined for a day, but be disciplined for 2 months. That's harder. That's harder. You got to be consistent. It's not working out won't get you anywhere if you're not consistent. Practicing, you can practice for 10 hours one day, but if you don't practice the rest of the week, you're not getting anywhere. Honest. Are you honest with yourself? Are you honest with your goal? Are you honest with others? Can you reflect on yourself? Can you look in the mirror and see an accurate picture? Do you look in the mirror and say, I'm a failure, I can't do anything? That you're not honest. Do you look in the mirror and say, I am top dog, I got it? You're not honest. And a great thing to understand is that every single trait that I just listed is a choice. It's a choice. It's not about when you were born, how old you are, what ethnicity you are, how intelligent you are, how skilled you are, how talented you are. Not about any of that. It's a choice. So you can't blame anything else but yourself if you lack any of these. But if you do, congratulations, because you were honest with yourself to admit it, but understand you have the power to change it all. Every single one of you can be organized, disciplined, consistent, and honest. Finally, your goals are going to change. Your goal at this age is not going to be your goal 30 years from now. You might have a goal onto the plan. I know I had a goal. I had a goal and I wrote down that goal and I was working my plan on the way to that goal. And while I got on that way to the goal, I said, it's not it anymore. It's not it anymore. I don't want this anymore. Let me switch it. And so I switched the goal and then I moved the plan and I did that. It's okay to switch the goal. Don't switch the goal because of inconsistency. All right. Don't say, oh man, we're 6 months in and I haven't started that album. I got to switch the goal to in another year. Not like that. But you could switch it to say, oh yeah, I'm switching the goal. I want to have 2 albums done in a year and a half. Right? That's how you're switching it. Or you say, oh, I'm switching the goal. Songwriting. And no, I want to be a composer. I want to compose for commercials. I want to have 2 commercials done in a year. That's switching a goal. You adjust the plan. Be okay making adjustments. Be honest, make the adjustments, and look at your plan every day. You stay focused. You get your goal. You get your reason behind your goal. You get how you're going to achieve your goal, and you look at it every day.
You know, on that note, Troy dropped the bar. Plan the work and then work the plan.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Yep.
I didn't come up with it, but just something I always keep in the back of my head.
Yeah, you know, and it's interesting because there's Go back to the slide, the one before. You'd be
This one?
surprised. Some of us sometimes, well, you know, I've said this before, to be an entrepreneur at the beginning, it really is the loneliest gig in the world. But notice that I said at the beginning, because when you do apply these things, when you are organized, when you are disciplined, consistent, and honest, you attract talent. And what I mean by talent is not the definition of talent according to A school. It's talent according to the B school. Does anybody remember how business people define talent? According to those slides.
It's having the resources, right?
Yeah. You want to elaborate?
So I guess talent in the what do you call it? A class or
Yeah, A school. A school.
Is like the ability to do something, whereas in the B school is, do we have the resources to get this done? Not necessarily like physically being able to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, in the A school, it's much more about one's innate ability to do a particular task, often with a sense of wonder, right? Aesthetic wonder or perceived aesthetic wonder. In the B school, when somebody says we need the talent, it's the people, the resources, like who have the ability to execute a task efficiently with expedience, right? So, and excellence, right? So what I'm saying is that you have people, there are people that want to be able to work on great stuff, but they don't want to work with people who are unreliable or inconsistent. So if you're not organized, not disciplined, not an honest person, not consistent person, it's going to be very difficult. For whatever reason, I just recall now, just like a little hang that I had with Brendan a couple weeks ago, and Mike Polo, and I met Mike Polo, and as wild as he is as a personality, like if you guys know Mike Polo, he's just an extraordinary force, but he's organized, he's disciplined, he's consistent, and he's honest. That has nothing to do with his personality. His personality is very vivacious, very New Jersey vibe, but he gets things done to the point where he earns the respect of, administration here at the University of Florida because of the different things that he's been able to do. Right. Mike Polo, by the way, he's an alumni here, and he even won the very top University of Florida graduate assistant, but now he's doing big musical theater productions and whatnot, and he graduated with a PhD in composition. So, I think it's important to recognize that, personality is different from what we're talking about here, because what this is has nothing to do with your personality, it has everything to do with your character. Who are you behind closed doors, right? Because the fruits of your labor is going to manifest, it's going to show. Watch this. People take a bite of that fruit, instantly they'll know how sweet it is or how sour it is, how bitter it is. So at the end of the day, how well you enact organization, discipline, consistency, and honesty it's one of those things where you can't actually hide unless you just don't interact with people. You know what I mean? But if you make an honest effort to at least improve over time, because I'm not saying that I do all these things perfectly or that you do all these things perfectly, right? But it's the quest towards getting better at organization, more disciplined, more consistent, more honest. That work ethic, those attributes, character traits that serve as the fuel to actually, work the plan. That's going to attract talent, B school definition. And that's going to be really good, because then guess what? You won't be lonely as an entrepreneur. There's always people to work with. And then you reach another state, by the way, in which, you will have so much success, in terms of success being defined as towards, functioning within your purpose and continually progress. It doesn't mean that you've reached that destination for that new assignment, but you're continuously progressing. But the more you are organized and disciplined, consistent, and honest, you'll take on more opportunities. And so it's never a boring day because, you'll take on different things, you'll continue to progress, but you've also taken on other different projects. And it's like, man, now you got to get all these things fulfilled. So now you have these different layers of responsibility, and then it actually becomes fun because the game, it's the reason why they call it a game. I mean, when you think about a game, most of the time a game is handled horizontally, not vertically. You see? So another reason why we have this correlation of impact and success, or the impact of a product, with a focus on horizontal impact, not vertical impact, because the game is played horizontally. So another way to kind of envision this is that once you are actually thriving in your discipline and expressing your character in a way that is representative of what is being discussed in the slides, you'll take on more opportunities as an entrepreneur. And the game becomes, how do you manage not one career, but 3, 5 careers? And you might call them careers, or you might call them projects, because at the end of the day, you're not reinventing yourself, right? You're just expressing different aspects of who you are to solve problems. And life is all about solving problems. So it's like a horizontal thing that's presented. All right, did I execute this? But this thing is still there, and you have written that out. So at the very least, even if you didn't tackle it this day or this week, you can go to sleep at peace, knowing that you have actually grown, but also with a healthy sense of just desire to want to do something more, because this is still a goal that hasn't been addressed. Just some thoughts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you had mentioned something about character that ties in for this next tool for success. And this is guiding principles. Now, these are not your big picture. These are your little snapshots. Okay. These principles are the anchor that keeps you still during a storm, grounded on the mountaintops, and encouraged through the valleys. Okay. These are the things that you go back on, you lean on.
According to you.
According to me. Yes, there's a little asterisk. Everything I say here is according to me. But each of you have your own principles, morals, and big picture goals. These aren't things that I can say this is what you need to have as your guiding principle. I can't guide you on setting those up. But what I can do is share some of mine and how I use them. Okay, so the first thing as a Christian, for me, the top guiding principle is reflecting Christ and serving God's people. I've mentioned several times on this in my purpose, and it is finding ways that I can serve people, serving families, serving residents, serving my audience, serving fellow bandmates, serving employees. How can I serve people? How can I show a good example? Okay, another principle, doing the right thing, making the choice to take that upper road when you're dealing with professional jealousy, making the choice to do the right thing, not just when it's easy not to, like I've listed here, but when you know you can get away with doing the wrong thing. Not just when you know you can get away with doing the wrong thing, but when you know you can get away with doing the wrong thing and it's going to help you out temporarily. Doing the right thing, being humble. Talk to you about my little dirt routine in the morning. Okay. Another principle for me is the idea of paying things back. Okay. All ships rise in a rising tide. They all get higher. I want to help as many people as I can. People have helped me. I feel as though I owe it to other people. And there's an important caveat here that I feel more people would be benefited to understand. Altruism is great, but it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. So if you have the opportunity to be altruistic, then by all means, you can do it. But understand that there are ways that you can help people and yourself be helped. If I get Darius a gig, if I'm a booking agent for Darius, and I get him a $10,000 gig, and I call him and I say, hey man, I got a gig, pays $9,000. Okay, I take a cut on it. Your portion will be $9,000. You want it? I think Darius would take it. I would take it if I were in his shoes. Okay. Now I still got something in regards to that, but that's scalable because I can take that and say, hey, I did this for Darius. Who else can I do this for? How many of these gigs can I get? And then I can turn that into a full-time job. I'm making my money. Then I start hiring people so that they can do it. And I'm benefiting everybody. That's a rising tide. Okay. If you can create something where you're helping people, paying things forward, and you can scale it, it's sustainable. That's the best way to do things. Next, never burn a bridge. Never burn a bridge, especially if you're in a tough situation. Always take the high road and always leave that bridge open. Let them choose to burn it, because if they burn it, it's only burned on their side. If there's a point in time where they come back to you, you can say, man, I never burned my side. We're good. We're good. You'll never know when you need it. Another one here, loose lips sink ships. I have seen it happen personally. I have had it happen personally. Make sure you keep your confidants close and few. Don't tell people everything. Let them see it. Okay, don't say, oh, I'm doing this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. Just say, hey, check this out. Well, let them come to you. Hey man, did you do that? Yeah, I did. Loose lips will sink ships, and it's not good for anybody. It's not good for anybody.
Because in this world, the business side of things, it is ruthless, so oftentimes, and there's, I think one thing that I'm trying to do here in this class is encourage. For some of you, it's to instill, but for others, it's just to encourage a competitive spirit, but all within a moral framework that ultimately leads to ameliorating the needs of other of the respective community that you're trying to address through your enterprise. But there's a lot of people that want to have a competitive spirit for just satisfying the ego, or for something that might be, selfish, as opposed to just, being of service, which is a big principle here, that one of the big themes that you're talking about. So yeah.
Absolutely. I have here next, setbacks are where success is born, and be honest. Okay. Again, I'm reiterating these themes as much as I can because of their importance. Setbacks are where success is born, and be honest. Be honest with people. Be honest with yourself. Next one is investing. Okay. Now we're going to take the view of investing as scarce resources. This can be a Jackson Pollock painting. This can be money in your bank. Okay, this can be your time. This can be your energy. This can be your body. This can be your family. And this can be people, those around you. These are resources that you have access to. At different points in your life, you want to focus on investing at different times, the different things at different times. Right now, we're young. We have more time than we have money. If you don't have children, then you're not having the same type of family that you will at another point. You're younger. You have to make good choices with your body now. You've got a lot of energy. So everyone here is young. What I would advise when you're young is you focus on developing your relationships, developing your position, developing your skills and knowledge, and developing your financial investment acumen. Right now, the resources that you have are time, energy, and your body. You don't have a lot of assets for money. You don't have a lot of family in regards to, you probably don't have a huge amount of children or people supporting that you're supporting. So take the time on developing yourself. For myself right now, I'm going through an MBA, and I'm doing that to develop my positioning. I have a goal, I want to be in in business. I want to be in the C-suite. I want to stay in the C-suites.
Explain C-suite so they
Oh.
understand.
CEO, COO, CFO. It's when it has a C, it's a chief. So chief financial officer, chief operations officer, chief executive officer. That's the C-suite. Now, in MBA, most all C-suite executives have an MBA. And I know if I don't have an MBA, that is a reason for someone else to be picked over me. So while I'm young, while I don't have the family, I have a wife, but I don't have 3 kids at home that are waiting to see me. I don't have 3 kids at home that I'm going to have to say, sorry, kids, daddy's got to work. I don't have that. While I don't have that, I'm taking my time and my energy and money, and I'm investing in my positioning. I'm investing in my skills, in my knowledge. I'm trying to make as good of a relationship as I can with those around me in the Tampa area. I'm developing my relationships. I'm taking the funds that I have available to me and I'm learning how to invest it. I encourage you all, learn about investing. Learn about investing, learn about real estate, learn about stocks, learning about mutual funds, learn about ETFs, and check it out. Right now, if you're playing around with $100, it's not going to cost you anything if you lose $100, but $100, right? But the skills that you can learn and how to actually handle your finances, how to handle your time will pay off in dividends down the road when you have this stuff. Because I'm going to tell you, having it does not mean that you know how to use it. Let's look at all the pro athletes, all the rappers who didn't take the time to invest in themselves. They didn't invest in their positioning. They didn't invest in their financial understanding, in their time management. They didn't invest in that. They had all the assets and they lost it all because they didn't know how to use it properly.
It's interesting because Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal, they talk about this exact same thing, but they had somebody tell them, learn about this quickly.
Yep.
If not, you're gonna get screwed. Because the first time that he got his million, he was raving. Shaquille O'Neal was so excited that he bought himself a car and he showed his dad. His dad said, well, what about mine? I think it was like a Mercedes or something like that. And so he bought his dad a car. And then the mom said, but what about me? So about the exact same one, and then he got a phone call from a financial advisor. I'm not sure the entire details, but basically said, hey, what are you doing? I just checked your finances and it's going down the drain. He says, but that's okay, I'm a millionaire. He says, no, you're not. You're no longer a millionaire because you just spent this much money on cars. So now you're that short of even being a millionaire. You're going to have all this money coming in contractually, once you start. But if you keep this up, you're never going to actually generate wealth. So
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, learning how to manage the scarce resources in your life, not just money, but the scarce resources, your time, your body, your energy, your family, your relationships with others, learning how to manage those scarce resources is a necessity to living life on your terms, to being able to really control what you do. The opportunity to say no to something only comes if you have the ability to say no. If you've got no money and I say, dude, I got a 5-hour gig, I'll pay you $20 if you beg me to. Well, then guess what? If you got nothing, if you haven't eaten in 3 days, you're going to beg me. You're going to beg me for $20 to play for 5 hours. But if you've managed yourself properly, you got $900,000 in the bank. You say, oh, man, thank you so much for that opportunity. I would never want to burn a bridge with you. But it's just, I'm not able to do that. Thank you for the offer though. So if you can manage the scarce resources, you can really start being intentional on what you choose to do.
this is great. We just finished 3 weeks of price setting negotiations and understanding value of one's products and services. So Yeah.
Perfect. And finally, for investing, be careful who you take advice from. Okay, don't go to a bricklayer to learn about gemstones. If someone's telling you, oh man, I know how to manage family. He's got 3 divorces and 2 kids that he's got no custody of. Please don't take advice from him. Please don't take advice from him. If you got somebody who's telling you, man,
Savage, bro.
yeah, if somebody's well, I use that because that was actually an example that happened one time. Someone gave me marriage advice who was working on his
Oh man,
marriage.
you know, if we just had 3 hours of the stories that you get at those assisted living facilities, oh my God, I don't
Absolutely.
think there'd be a dry eye in the room from the laughter, you know.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And if someone wants to give you a stock tip and you knew they were driving for Uber the night before, please don't take it. Please don't take it. Go to the person who legitimately knows what they're doing. And they'll be willing to share you advice most of the time because they want to pay it forward too. All right. Now we come to the big picture. The legend goes, Alexander the Great wept because there were no more worlds to conquer. Okay, we've spoken a lot about a big picture already. This is your reason behind it. This is what gives you the fulfillment. This is what keeps you grounded. This is where your principles lead back to. This is what you link your goals and your plan towards. This is what you're looking at every day. If you don't have a big picture, you will lose yourself. If you somehow stumble, one of the worst things that could happen to any one of you is that you stumble into success without your big picture. Money.
And hold on 1 second, you just dropped a big bar right there.
Woo.
Go, repeat that again.
One of the worst things that could happen to anyone here is if they stumble into success without having their big picture. Money, accolades, sex, praise, personal happiness. It's all meaningless. You will fight. You will cry. You will bleed. You will sweat. You will do all this to accomplish your goals and your plans. You will make sacrifices. You will make this stuff. What for you is worth suffering for?
Man,
What for you is worth dying for? Kids? Family? Of course. What for you is worth the biggest commitment of all? What's worth living for? That's your big picture. When you wake up, you say, this is worth spending today for. This is worth working for. This is worth it because it means so much to me. It accomplishes so much of what I want to accomplish for the reason I want to accomplish it, and it gets the result that I want to accomplish, that I am willing to devote my life to this. And that's your big picture. And if you reach success without having that, you're going to recognize that any of the perks you enjoyed while getting to this point that became your focus are worth nothing. You're worth nothing. I know people who are worth a lot of money and they are an empty shell. They are a zombie. They could buy, quite literally, they could have a garage full of Bugattis if they wanted it. And they're empty. And I know people who don't have nearly that. They've had success and they have enough money, but their success was measured in different ways, and they're fulfilled. They could die tomorrow. They're fine. They're good. They've got peace. They've got fulfillment. You have to find your big picture. That's what you do. And I pray that none of you fails to find the big picture and find success first. People actually kill themselves when they recognize everything they were fighting for meant nothing. So wrapping it all up, don't limit your thinking. Everything is connected. Expand your horizons. Keep a childlike curiosity. Don't limit your self-definition. You are not one thing. Okay? But you grow. You grow. You don't put on a hat and say, this is my musician hat. This is my producer hat. This is my booking hat. No. You're you. And you've got all this knowledge that you've built up. You're continuing to build up. So you don't reinvent yourself, but you're a tree and you grow in many different directions. You keep a childlike curiosity. You sprout new branches. You stay naive to the impossible. There's no branch that didn't grow because it said, oof, learning chess is too hard. Oof, learning pole vaulting it's too hard. No. Naive to impossibility. Question everything you learn. Immerse yourself in what you're doing. Obsess yourself on it. Find fulfillment in what you do. And above all, keep that big picture. Set your goals. Set your plan. Look at them every single day. Learn how to invest your scarce resources and truly invest in them. I have attached a reading list. I'm a huge reader. Most people, when they have a reading list, they suggest individual books or individual publications. And I think that's fantastic. But in the spirit of this lecture about the new paradigm and reinventing yourself, I'm not going to give you suggestions on books to read. I'm going to give you suggestions on things to read. Now, keep in mind, I'm a big reader, so I'm putting it into reading. But you can do podcasts, you can watch documentaries, you can do whatever you want, but study these topics, biographies and autobiographies. Learn about the people. It's truly, I'm reading a biography on Steve Jobs right now. It's fantastic. Personal finance. Read about it, learn about it. Investing. I separate personal finance from investing. Personal financing is creating a budget, being smart with your money, not buying a $5,000 watch because you just got $5,000. That's personal finance. Investing, how do you make your money make money? Okay. Philosophy, religion. These are things that you may not think are going to benefit you, but it will expand you. Learning about this stuff, diving in. One of my favorite religious writers is C.S. Lewis, and he combines philosophy and religion. Fantastic stuff. Please read newspaper and current events. Stay up to date on it. Be able to talk intelligently on subjects that are happening now. Be educated on what's going on. You need that.
Do you read the physical or the digital or both?
You know what I read. I read the physical, bro. 6 days a week, I get it delivered to my house.
Old school,
I sit up there with a physical print, Wall Street Journal.
With your cigar?
No.
Okay.
Just the paper.
Because I remember when I met you at 12 years old, I said, this guy's like 40 years old, trapped in a 12-year-old body. You know,
I have the newspaper with my coffee, and actually my resident would be kind of upset because I borrowed his cigar. I kept him back here for him. He asked for me to keep him safe. So from the beginning, that was We're gonna say thank you for Theo for letting me use the cigar as a prop earlier. Science. Okay, you guys are all arts and humanities, so you've got a great mind in regards to artistry. Challenge that with science. Add in a different viewpoint. Artistry is all about what are you feeling? What are you conveying? Science is all about what are you measuring? What's being measured? What can you reproduce? What can be duplicated? Very important to have a scientific mindset. And in fact, I'll share a tidbit. I've been thinking recently about once I graduate with the MBA, potentially going for a law degree, doing that, not because I want to practice law, but because the law seems so crazy to me and it seems so out there. And if I have an artistic mindset and then I have a scientific mindset, if I have a judicial mindset on top of that, how could that benefit me? That's something I'm working out with me personally, but that kind of viewpoint I try to build in myself. So the sciences will help you build a different viewpoint. Continue to read in the arts and humanities, continue to learn. History. History's huge, okay? Here's a public service announcement to anyone who had a bad history teacher. If you think history is about what happened when, you're wrong. I apologize for all the teachers that made you think that. History is about why that happened. That's the whole thing. Why did it happen? How did it happen? That's history. The date is much less important than the context. Okay, if you know something happened in 1600, it doesn't matter that it happened in 1600. What matters is you understand, hey, what was going on in 1600? What was the general thing there? I have a feeling we weren't all just watching TikToks and relaxing on the beach. So history is a hugely important thing. If you're not into it, please just check out a reading in anything history. And then finally, hobbies. You never know what kind of thing will expand your mind. I did gardening when I was in high school, and it was fantastic for me. It brought me into that scientific zone. It gave me a greater understanding of health and fitness, understanding vegetables and how to eat better. So explore your hobbies. You know, right now I like watches. So the art of watches is horology. So right now horology is my hobby. I even have a little kit where I can put them together. So explore your hobbies. That's what I have. Does anybody have any questions?
Just for the record, I just want to just say this. It's so much good information that you just dropped today, man. About, you know, what I love about what you've talked about today is it helps us to be well-rounded individuals outside of what we're doing right now. You know, so it's very imperative for all of us to keep in mind that while we've got all these things going on, whether it's concerts, whether it's, you know, midterm final exams, you know, midterms have passed, so now we're looking for, you know, final exam, other assignments. It's good to keep in mind that we need to be looking ahead at who we're going to be 2-3 years from now, 5 to 10 years from now. You know, so it's good to have these kind of conversations. You know, so very, very valuable here.
Absolutely. I actually perform a mental exercise probably about once a week. And I pretend that I typically do it when I wake up. I'm laying in bed and I pretend that I'm dying. I pretend that there's nurses around me, that I'm in the hospital, there's family around me, they're crying, and I know that I'm breathing my last breath. And I close my eyes and I immediately wake up, I open them up, and I take it as the end. How do I visualize my today now? How does that change my today? So that's a fun little exercise. Again, I try to do it about once a week. and it really helps you reset some things. I've put some things on the back burner, taken my wife to dinner after that before. It reprioritizes your life.
Jesse, you're built different, man. your entrepreneurial advice. I mean, just so you know, this is not a shocker to me at all, class. I mean, I brought him in because I needed somebody very different that I thought would be, exciting in the most depressing way. No, part of it is because, you love to read, and you were just talking about Alexander the Great, person with tremendous, enormous success. I mean, his wealth would be considered in the trillions. You also quoted about how everything is meaningless, all of these different things meaningless, what is worth dying for, what is worth living for. That stems from another person you've been reading, in the book of Proverbs, King Solomon, also considered a trillionaire of today. Like these are like among the 6 or 7, like trillionaires in human history that we know of, at least, just the vast amount of power, wealth, and entrepreneurialism that they all carried, respectively. Whether we agree with how they handle their lives or not, it's not the thing. But but I mean,
Yikes! What happened?
I think he froze.
I froze?
Dang, bro. Oh
Looks like
man.
he's throwing dice.
Oh,
Are you back? There
I'm
you
back.
are.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. It's the internet.
The last we heard was whether you agree with.
Whether you agree with it, with these cats that you were quoting today or not, that's not the point. The point is, I mean, look at the amount of success, and yet they were unsatisfied, unhappy, because they didn't. There came a point, either they lost the big picture, or maybe they basked in the success, which provided them temporary satisfaction. But while he was dying, he wrote the book of Ecclesiastes, King Solomon, and that's when he just went on a rampage, writing about how this is meaningless. He started talking about how he invested on all this stuff, kingdoms and money and wealth, only for it to be passed down to somebody who's not even his bloodline, to become the king, and do something else different. So it's like, it's that kind of thing that is a great wake-up call. So, for you to say that, I do this once a week. I just think about myself dying. And then I say, you know what, I'm going to put my things in the back burner so I can spend time with my wife. Like, that's a legitimate, concept to help recalibrate the focus and make it all about, ultimately, like, why are we doing what we're doing for, which is, at this point, I feel like I'm now being a little bit of a broken record, but out of the 10 factors,
I think it's ironic that he was about to say broken record when it froze.
Exactly.
I hope the irony was not lost on anyone. That is fantastic. Oh, it doesn't. You back?
Yeah.
So
Bad signal. Anyways, I'm not gonna say anything else further, just because I don't want to ruin it. But hey, why don't you share with us a little bit about your website, Gig Nations?
Oh, yeah. All right, do I have to stop? I think I have to stop share and then screen share the new one. Okay.
And bring it back.
Can you guys see it? Can you see the enthusiastic grandma with the awesome necklaces? Fantastic. Okay, so this is the site. It is exceptionally new. I've got the company loaded onto it, and I've been meeting with each facility individually to get our artists on here. So what this site does, and if you guys want to go on and make an account, that would be fantastic. I'm going to start rolling out to facilities in Gainesville. I've got 150 facilities actually that I'll be rolling out to once I get my people loaded on from Angels. But it's a very simple website. I wanted to keep everything simple for people to be able to use it easily. Facilities will go on, hit find local talent. And here's some people that we got on here. They can go on, they can go to onto their page. They read a short bio about them. He didn't choose to leave video, but you can leave video, and then you can contact them with this little contact us today button. Log in or register to contact us. All right. And then if you are an entertainer, what you'll do is you can go on here to find local facilities. Find a facility. Right now, you can go on and you can see all the facilities here. Let's take New Tampa, for instance. You can go right on there, and then you can, once you create the account, which is free, everything's free to get on it, you can log in and then contact them and send a message directly to them. And from there, you guys set a gig up. I actually don't know if you can hear it, but in the background, there's a saxophonist. I have someone playing right now at the facility for the residents. Oh,
Share your sound.
It has been sharing because you guys can hear me. Yeah, it's all the way on the other side of the facility. It's very faint, and I got the door shut. But the way that you'll create an account is you'll go over here to sign up. You get your email, set up your password, confirm it, first name, last name, and then this is going to be your performing name, the nickname, right? Whatever you go under. So it might be the same as your first and last name. Sometimes people have a different performance name, and so that's where it's going to go. You're going to create the account. Once you create the account, and I have all this stuff up because I'm editor of the page, but once you have all this stuff, you can go to add listing. What are you, a facility or local talent? Your local talent. And from here, you gotta move this. You put your name, the band name, if it's different from yourself. You put your first name, your last name, go through, put a nice little bio about yourself, put the state and city with which you perform and zip code. You know, put your phone number, your contact email, put a link for YouTube, put a little face shot of you, anything, your little profile picture. If you're a band, you can put a member count. If you have any SoundCloud, you can put it in there. You select your category. In this case, we'd all probably be musician band. Submit the gig, and now you've got an artist profile. So now facilities can reach directly out to you, or you can reach directly out to facilities. So I try to make it exceptionally user-friendly, and on here facilities can go in if they want to type something in, if they want to saxophone, if they want to do Tampa, Florida. You know, let's say you're doing gigs, you're in Tampa, and so you type in Tampa, and now it separates it by facility and by talent. So if I'm a facility and I say, man, I want to book Kyle Schroeder, boom, I go here. If you're a musician, you say, hey, I'm going to be in Tampa next month. Let me reach out, see if I can get any gigs while I'm gone. So gignations.com, set up an account if you're interested in performing for people in assisted living facilities. You know, they don't have a lot of opportunity to see people. They don't have a lot of, they're not going to see anyone perform unless the facility brings people in. So you're their opportunity to bring that excitement, that joy back into their lives.
That's really, really cool, because I like the way you said it. Like, you know, have your profile there. They can contact you, or you can contact them. And there's always a need for entertainment. So how does it work? compensation wise? Like what, or I know things are evolving, but how
Yeah,
does it-
no, so right now, again, I'd stated at the beginning, my two goals was to help musicians and to help the seniors. And so I wanted no barriers to entry for anyone. I did not want a reason for someone not to be able to sign up. So you can sign up and gig free. Now, there's a premium subscription where you'll be put first. You'll be put first, you'll go out in a newsletter, you'll be promoted. And that's a monthly fee setup. There's also another thing right now, which we're working on the back end on an internal payment system. It's going to be optional, but as musicians, I'm sure you guys have had a problem with accounts receivable. You invoice something and you say, okay, where's that $100? That was 2 weeks ago. Where's that $100? That was 2 months ago. And what we would do is we would be able to process it for you. So when the gig is booked, the facility will pay us. We will hold that money in escrow, and then the facility will have 72 hours to flag the payments to launch a dispute. If no dispute happens after 72 hours, then the funds would be deposited to whatever account you have, PayPal, direct bank account, whatever. So we're currently working on developing that. Now that would have a 15% fee associated with it. We on our end would have a 6% processing fee roughly, and then we'd put in about a 9% profit on it.
Wait a minute. So you take account for equity?
Yes.
Good. Yeah, I was
Absolutely.
talking about them. I was talking about like, as we're price setting, don't just price set for the labor, but think about a price in which you're going to be able to generate revenue so that you can actually build upon your business, not only just pay the bills, but build your business, right?
Absolutely. And that's the thing. Altruism is not scalable. If I do this entirely out of the goodness of my heart and I never make anything out of it, I can't build it to what I want to build it to. But if I make the money, I can hire the people, I can expand the site, I can launch the marketing, and I can make everyone a lot of money, and I can bring quality entertainment to brighten the lives of people that don't have much brightness.
Man. Well, yeah. Any questions?
Yeah,
Thoughts?
I have a question. Hi, I had a question about when you said that you started getting to the business field. For you, one of the first things you did was to speak with the owner of the facility, right? And then he suggested for you to do an administration training, right? Okay. I didn't know that was possible to do. So you can actually reach out to people from companies and tell your idea, that you have a business idea, and then they'll help you or train you to get there.
So this first, anything is possible. Absolutely. The way that I met these people were my grandparents were talking and his wife overheard them talking and brought in the conversation. So I didn't specifically reach out to him. What I was pursuing at the moment was going to be owning my own residential assisted living facility. That was my plan. I was going to buy a house, convert it into a residential assisted living facility, and do it from there. But in the same way, just because mine came through a relationship like that, we've brought in tons of people who have walked in the door and applied. We brought in people who applied through Indeed. We've brought in people who came in from a family member. And this is where that connection network that I was talking about as far as your things to invest in is your network around you. Because when you're first coming out of college, chances are you're not going to have a lot to stand behind. Your resume is going to be a pretty weak resume. And so they always talk about getting that first job. The first job out of college is really the hardest thing to get. And I would suggest to everybody, see what kind of relationships you have. If you have a club that you go to, make sure you know what everyone in that club does. If you have a church that you go to, get to know people inside that church. If you got clubs at school, if different things like that, really look inside that network, because you don't know if you were you the one pursuing the medical degree as well?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so you don't know if Troy's mother might be the ER director at a hospital up there. You don't know. Talk to people, make sure you're building those relationships, and those connections will come. Those connections will come. Do all the groundwork you can. Put yourself out there. You're not going to get noticed if you're not put out there. But working those relationships are very important for reasons like that.
Okay, got it. And how did you get training in administration? Was it through him, through the owner?
Yeah, so with the company I work for, Angel Senior Living, we have an administrator in training program. And so basically anyone that we're looking to hire for to be an administrator, they go through a period of training. Even if they've gone through, have their core certificate, have gone through and run other buildings, we bring through that training process to make sure that they know our systems, to make sure that they are who they say they are, because we don't want to just give them a building. We don't want to say, hey, here's 84 lives. Like for my building, I've got actually 85 residents. I don't want to just give the person the keys and say, hey, take care of these 85 people. I'm responsible for them. If I'm replacing myself here, if I'm going to a different position in the company and I'm replacing myself, I want to work with this person. I want to work with this lady, with this guy for several months. Make sure he knows how to perform things, and then we bring him in. So my training in regards to this company came through the administrator in training program. It was February 4th was the first day, and September 26th was my last day as an administrator in training. And then I came over to this building as administrator.
Got it. Thank you.
Of course.
Hopefully it won't cut off. If it does, that'd be amazing. No, I just want to point out that, you know, your perspective is very valuable and it's different, you know, the different tone today. But I'd like to add that, you know, he's not just an executive director, he's an executive director of an assisted living facility. And so his perspective is informed by the fact that while he's 25 years old, how many of you are 25, 24, 23, right? You know, he's surrounded by people that are this close to death on a daily basis. So, but I've always known Jesse to be that dude where it was like he was 12 years old and he's reading like all kinds of different things. I'm like, why? You're just 12. Shouldn't you be playing video games? And I'll never forget, he was reading C.S. Lewis, he was reading physiology, he was reading, you know, all these different things. And it's just like, it got worse. It got worse. You know, I also think it got messed up when the first lesson I taught him, you know, I introduced him to Jack DeJohnette, like Elvin Jones, like the top drummers. So like the thing is, it's like, where do you go from there? You know? Yeah, I messed you up from the get-go, but it's good. It's a good, healthy perspective because, you know, we're at the college level, we're always trying to pursue something for life. But, you know, it's also good to have the end of the road and then work backwards so that, you know, we can help bring value, which is a big part of entrepreneurship, but also meaning, you know, meaning to the work that we do so that we are not necessarily happy, but fulfilled. Because happiness we can't control. You know, but fulfillment is one of those things that we can control based on the choices that we make. So. Did I cut off?
No, you're good. You're good.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, cool. Well, class ends at 7:05 right now. It's at 7:03 on my end. Thank you so much, Jesse.
Of course. Thank you for the time. Thank you for allowing me to speak here, and you know, I wish you all the best success, and I hope you're able to implement some stuff. I hope I was able to help you on your journey, and if anything was helpful to you, please pay it forward.
Awesome, Jesse. What kind of investment companies do you invest in, or what's your do you do it via the app on your phone, or just
So I've used a financial advisor in the past. I recently withdrew a large chunk of my portfolio when we had that little uptick a while back, a couple weeks ago. But primarily now, like I have a Roth IRA where I'll just do broad indexing for the S&P. It's pretty safe and stable. I don't like investing as much in single stocks and stuff because I don't have control over it. And I personally, I'd rather lose my money myself than have someone else lose it for me. I mean, obviously the goal is to make it, but right now I'm putting the majority of my money in things that I have an equity stake in and active control over. So if it's a business venture that I can partner in, or if it's a something involving real estate that I can own or partner in as well, or be a lender in regards to that, that's mainly where I'm putting the money now. But I still keep the Roth, and I would advise you all check out a Roth IRA. It's a tax advantaged IRA where you invest post tax dollars for tax free growth. It's a good one, and you know, you can just throw a couple dollars in there now and it'll benefit you in the end.
How about this? I'll end it with a video of you playing drums.
Oh, cool.
You know, there's that other aspect that you're this incredible drummer, and I rather than a recording, we'll get one of your older videos from back in the day, which is
I think somebody raised their hand. Sophia.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, what other specific recommendations would you have that are related to business or financial management or growth in finance?
You know, so in regards to, I've pretty well covered the business area. As far as I would just say, grow, read as much as you can. As far as the finances and personal finances, I'd recommend you read stuff. Some books that I really liked were A Random Walk Down Wall Street. That's a really well-known book. That's a good one. Another classic is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it gives you, that one's good for a mindset as far as really trying to figure out how to make your money make you money. The Little Book on Common Sense Investing is another great book. And then I highly recommend reading some biographies. That's what caused me to put more and more money inside my own ventures and things that I had active control over versus just putting it in the market, whether it be single stocks, whether it be indexing. As I was reading Branson's biography, I read Buffett's biography. I read some stuff on Icon and Ackman, and I recognized these guys they're working with stocks, but they're buying so much that they have control over it. And that's something that kind of made me change course and say, okay, I've learned stuff now. I'm ready to have control over what I'm putting my money in. But stocks are still great options. You know, you can look in bonds right now with inflation going up. Tips might not be a bad thing to look at. So just kind of start researching it. Go through, again, do not take advice from broke people on how to make money. That's a bad way to start. But also don't take advice from the people who are just flashing money, right? There's a quiet confidence that comes from the people who actually have it.
Got it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
all right. Here's this video that Jesse made years ago for several companies that he received endorsements from. So Bosphorus cymbals, Anchor drums, and Pig Hog cables, which are the cables for the microphones, really high quality. And this was just like a demo that they asked for them to market in their advertisements. So Let's see here. Y'all can see this? All right. And on that note, take care. Can't hear you, Jesse.
So have a great evening, everyone. Thank you again for having me.
All
It's a
right.
pleasure.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you.